I should have worn my pearls with this. I like wearing my pearls with this shirt.
Hey guys, my name is Elliot, and I use they them pronouns. This week, we're talking about what it means when someone claims the gay identity label. But we're doing things a little differently because we have an incredible guest joining us over Zoom this week. So Noah, can you introduce yourself and tell us where you are?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Noah. I use he, they pronouns. I actually just graduated from Indiana Wesleyan University, which is super exciting. I have a degree in worship arts, a bachelor's of science in worship arts. And I just moved to Montana, so that is where I am calling from, and that's why we have to do this over Zoom.
Yeah, and since Noah graduated with a ministry degree, and since you have done and you're doing a ton of research on homosexuality in the Bible and in relation to Christianity, I'm excited because we'll be doing a future video series with you on queer theology.
Yeah, I do love to talk about queer theology. But for now, we're focusing on another great thing that I do like to talk about, which is being gay, just in general.
Right. So, to start off, what does it mean when someone uses the word gay?
Yeah, so there are three main definitions of the term gay. So first, the word gay can refer to a man who is attracted to other men. This is the most specific definition of the three. And when I say man too, that can be maybe someone who is assigned male at birth too. It doesn't necessarily mean someone who identifies specifically as male. Yeah.
Yeah, and for that specific definition that you were just talking about, Noah, people might see the letters MLM, which stands for men loving men or men who love men.
Yeah, just like the letters WLW, standing for women who love women.
Exactly. And a slightly wider definition of the word gay would be anyone who primarily is attracted to people of the same gender as them, or people who are attracted to people of a very similar gender as them. This definition, the second definition, would include gay men and lesbians, and non-binary people who are attracted to other non-binary people.
And speaking of lesbians, if you haven't seen last week's video about the term lesbian, maybe take a minute and hop over there, or plan to check out that video after you finish this one. You can see the link over here somewhere.
Yeah, so you should definitely check that one out. So the third definition of the term gay is the broadest definition we have. And so the word gay can also be used as an umbrella term to describe anyone who's not straight.
Yeah, so this last definition includes people who are primarily attracted to just one gender, like gay men or lesbians, and people who are attracted to multiple genders as well.
Yeah, and if we want to sound fancy, the term for people who are attracted to just one gender is monosexual, while the term for people who are attracted to multiple genders is multisexual or non-monosexual.
So both monosexual and multisexual people can use the label gay.
Right. Tons of different people use the term gay to describe their sexuality.
So why don't we go ahead and give some more specific examples?
Yeah, so we've already said that a man who is attracted to other men can use the label gay, and so can a woman who is attracted to other women.
And how about someone who's bisexual or pansexual? Maybe we could talk about that a bit too.
They could also use the label gay. The next two videos we're planning on making will focus on bisexual, pansexual, and omnisexual identities, so you can tune in next week to see those ones. But for now, yes, bi, pan, and omni people can definitely call themselves gay.
And one person can claim multiple labels to describe their sexuality. So, like both bi and gay, for instance, or like gay and pan would be a couple examples.
Yeah, exactly. Someone could also use the label gay if they like how open-ended or non-specific it sounds. Maybe they don't want to sound tied down or constricted by a more specific label, and so they might choose this umbrella term to describe them as specifically as they want. So maybe if you have like woman or an AFAB non-binary person who's primarily attracted to women but doesn't feel very attached to femininity, like they might not like the word lesbian, but they could use the word gay instead.
But that doesn't mean all non-binary people are going to like the label gay.
Yeah. Everyone has different preferences and opinions, and everyone gets to decide their own labels for themselves.
So, in the last video, you and Leslie mentioned the terms womansexual and gynosexual, which are terms some non-binary people might feel more comfortable using to describe their attraction to women or femininity, because those labels don't specify their own genders. Are there labels like that describe attraction towards men or masculinity? Maybe we could talk about that a bit as well.
Yeah, you're referencing homosexuality and gynosexuality, which we did talk about in the last video. The terms for attraction towards men or masculinity are massexual and androsexual. These terms were created for people who are attracted to men or masculinity, but don't like how a term like gay or homosexual might make someone assume something about their own gender.
And someone could also call themselves both massexual and androsexual, and gay as well.
Right. And another important term to note is same-gender loving, or SGL. The term same-gender loving was coined in the 1990s by the activist CLEO MANAGO.
Okay, yes. And MANAGO came up with this term because he, like many other black people, felt that terms like gay or lesbian were too Eurocentric, or too focused on only the experiences of white people.
Yeah, and someone could use both the labels same-gender loving and gay to describe themselves.
Definitely.
So we've just gone through a bunch of terms. How about we move on to some history, Noah?
Yes. Like, where did the words gay and homosexual come from? How long have we been using these different words, and how have they changed over time? Are, I think, some good starting points.
Yeah, so I went down a rabbit trail and did some research, and I found that a Hungarian doctor, who I'm probably going to pronounce his name incorrectly, but it's KAROLY Maria BENKERTZ. Also, side note, this guy that I looked up had some killer facial hair, and I'm going to put a picture up here for people who are watching this. I got off Wikipedia, and Noah, I'll definitely send you the picture later. Anyways, so BENKERTZ first coined the term homosexual in 1869. The word didn't really gain a lot of traction until the 1900s, though. And then, in the mid-1900s, some queer activists liked the word homophile instead of homosexual and started using that one because they thought that it had a more positive connotation than homosexual.
But we don't really hear the word homophile used much today, or at least I don't.
Right, me neither. So, the word gay started to be used in the early 1900s and then became more popular in the 1960s. After the Stonewall riots in 1969, people started using the word gay even more.
We love some good history.
So, then switching gears a little bit, can we talk about some more personal experience?
Yeah.
So, I use the word gay for myself as an umbrella term, but Noah, when you use the word gay, you mean something a little more specific, right?
Yeah, so where to start? I am AMAB, assigned male at birth. I do identify as demigender or non-binary, so that's like a subcategory, so semi-binary. So I do, though, have like an affinity with like masculinity and maleness, even if I don't completely identify with that. And so at the same time, too, I also identify as androsexual or androphile. And so the word gay for me is sort of a recognition of my position on the gender sort of spectrum or continuum, however you conceptualize that. There's a lot of different ways of looking at that. So it's a recognition of that, at the same time recognizing sort of the, where my attraction is aimed, which is like towards people generally who fall on that same end of the spectrum.
Do you use other labels to describe your sexuality too, or is gay like the main go-to word for you?
Yeah, so I do use other labels because I think language can be confining, and I don't think there's any one term that's going to completely fit any one person because we're all unique. That's the way the Lord created us. But I think my primary go-to word is gay, just because I find myself in community a lot with people who are maybe not familiar with those other terms, those other labels. And so it's easiest for me to describe myself, and it's the closest to accurate without being confusing to them if I use the word gay. Now, for myself, though, I found that it is helpful to have other terms. Like I mentioned, androsexual is probably a more accurate term that I use for myself. Demisexual is another one, which I don't know, Elliot, if you're going to do a video in the future on that. But I can just briefly say demisexual is when you don't experience sexual attraction to someone until after you've developed some sort of emotional connection with them. So there's that as well. But gay really is like a helpful umbrella term I found. So.
Yeah, so how long have you used the word gay to describe yourself? Or how long have you known that you were gay? Or both?
How long have I used the word gay to describe myself? So, well, really only for a couple years. I grew up in a very, this is part of my personal story, but like I grew up in a very repressed environment where stigma was just automatically attached to the term gay. And so that was something that I really wanted to distance myself from. And then when I actually began attending an Indiana Wesleyan University, which is also like a very hostile environment towards LGBTQ plus people, I found myself in a lot of social and academic settings, and even like settings with my employment, where it didn't really feel safe to be using that label. So I have known that I was experiencing attraction to men, I guess, from like a very young age. But it was something that I was always taught that, you could sort of like, I guess, pray away in a sense. I mean, I know that's a really cliche term that we use, but I think for those reasons I was very hesitant to begin using the word gay. And so, yeah, it's been a journey for me, but I think actually it was, while being in sort of that really oppressive setting, attending school at, a conservative Christian institution, that I really did begin to embrace that and take pride in that as well, and realize that that is just a part of like the fabric of who I am, how God has built me, and any shame that I experience on account of that is not from them. So
yeah, so Noah, you came from a Wesleyan background, and so when you started like realizing that you were gay or that you were attracted to men and like androsexual, did you use the label at first, or were you hesitant because of your upbringing?
I think the turning point was actually a conversation that I had with the Lord. I was going for a walk one night, and I did like a research project. I was in Old Testament, and it was a very brief cursory research project, but I decided to explore like human sexuality, and I started doing research on it, and I very quickly realized that there were other ways of looking at it than what I had been taught. So when I was doing this research project on human sexuality, I found that it was very eye-opening for me because I had no idea there were other ways of reading scripture. And so after that, I sort of had this conversation with God, because obviously it was a very personal subject for me. And during this conversation, I just said for the first time, I said it out loud for the first time, I'm gay. And it was just very, like, I don't know, I think the first thing that I felt was just peace, which is, obviously a fruit of the Spirit. And so I think that was like a very sacred moment. I think God met me there in that place as I was going for this walk around my university campus late at night, I think. Yeah. So I would say the first person to affirm my sexuality was God. And from there on out, it was sort of a process of them like taking me through and re-examining all of those like different, like, I don't know, I guess words of shame that had been spoken over me for so long. So it was a journey to get to the place where I actually felt confident in that label. But yeah, that's a little bit about what that process looked like for me.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Noah. And also, would you really quickly define, for those people who are watching this, what it means to be Wesleyan?
Yes. So the Wesleyan Church is a small holiness denomination that is based in central Indiana, actually. It's like an offshoot of the Wesleyan Methodist movement. So it broke off what is now the United Methodist Church. Names change, labels change. For denominations, just like they do for people. So the Wesleyan Church is the denomination I was raised in. My father is actually an ordained minister in the Wesleyan Church. I was very, very involved. For the first 20 years of my life, I was very involved in that denomination, and it is the denomination that the university I attended is affiliated with. It is unfortunately very homophobic, has a very poor track record with engaging with the LGBTQ plus community. So most notably in 2013, it published several statements about, like, you know, how queer people deserve to be loved and treated with respect, just like people who are not queer. Yet, you know, in the years following that, it proceeded to do some of its most harmful things to the LGBTQ plus community in the entirety of its history, which, I mean, among those things, there was a landmark Supreme Court case in 2017 where a religious leader, or a few religious leaders, actually took the state of California to court after the state of California enacted a ban against sexual orientation change efforts, or more colloquially, gay conversion therapy for minors. That was outlawed in California. Several religious leaders made the claim that that was an infringement upon their religious freedom. That would be one example of sort of the Wesleyan sentiment. Gay conversion therapy is actually referred to in Wesleyan literature as sexual reorientation. This is a practice that's been proven by multiple studies by really well-regarded scientific groups and communities and organizations. It's been found by all of those groups to be a harmful practice, and this is a practice that's actively upheld by the Wesleyan Church. There are multiple Wesleyan institutions that actively discriminate against queer students. So the Wesleyan Church, very homophobic. In fact, last year I emailed the head of the entire denomination, Dr. Wayne Schmidt, with some concerns that I had, and was sort of brushed aside. And I think that was actually one of the moments that really made me realize that it was time for me to leave that setting as well. So now I am an Episcopalian. I'm a part of the Episcopal Church. I'm confirmed in the Episcopal Church. Actually, Elliot and I were confirmed together in the Episcopal Church on the same Sunday. So, but yeah.
Yeah. As a Christian who is queer and has such a love for the LGBT community, it really is hard to hear people talk about all of the hurtful things that Christians do to our community. It makes me really sad. Going back to being gay, though, when you first started thinking that you weren't straight, did you know, like, right away your labels that you now claim, or was this like a whole searching process, and how did that look for you?
I think it is really like a journey of discernment. I think we are who we are, and like language is how we describe ourselves. What I mean by that is every label is going to be limited in some sense, and I think I mentioned that earlier. I mean, if you are even like experimenting with different labels, if you're changing your labels, whatever, I think sometimes there can be a little bit of stigma about that. It's like, oh, well, like, you're changing yourself or whatever. But I think really that can be a sign of growth. And so I think it's important to investigate those things and have those conversations with yourself. It can even help you to understand yourself better when you have the right words to describe your experience. But yeah, I definitely did not have all of those labels right from the get-go, and I might, you know, that might change in the future as well as I, you know, continue growing as a person.
Yeah, I think that's such a good distinction to make, that Your identity is not invalid if you don't have the label or you don't feel like you have a label that quite fits. Your identity is your identity, and it is fluid, so it can change over time. And if you don't know your label, you're still completely valid. Labels are supposed to make you feel more understood and not as alone. So my last question is, what advice would you give to someone who is still questioning and exploring their sexuality, and who maybe doesn't know if the label gay fits them?
I would just say, first off, it's okay. There's no rush to figure out whatever questions are floating around in your head or pressing upon your heart. You figure it out at your own pace, at your own rate. Be patient with yourself. And I would also say too, I would say that that's a very spiritual experience. No matter what spiritual background you're coming from, it's a very spiritual experience, and don't neglect that. I think that so often we've been taught that coming to terms with coming to terms with your identity and taking on those labels is a profane experience. I think we've stripped away the deep meaningful significance of that, and I think, I would say reclaim that. Just remember that this is you. Love yourself throughout the whole process, and be patient.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Noah. If you're watching this and you have any questions after watching this, for myself or for Noah, you can reach out to QR at our Instagram, which is @queerresources. And Noah, if they want to reach out to you specifically, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram. I have an account that is currently private. Noah, it's just at Noah Auk. NOAHAUK, no underscores, no dots, no nothing. But hopefully that Instagram will be resurrected soon. And so, yeah, go ahead and just find me on there. And also, too, my email is noahaukerman@gmail.com.
So yeah, reach out to us if you have any questions. Also, if you have suggestions for future videos, because we want to know what you want to know about. So you can leave that in the comments or DM us at our Instagram for that too. Next week, we'll be doing a video about bisexuals. It will be the first in a 2-part series. So we're really excited to share that with you and share some other perspectives.
Thank you so much for joining us, for sticking with us through this video. We'd love to hear your feedback, and we hope that you will join us again soon. Bye-bye.